Oh, there it is.
There it is.
Okay, so as everybody's seen, the plant of the month is scarlet pea, which is Indigofera miniata. And it's a low growing member of the pea family, and it can make a nice ground cover, or it can fill in around plants. It has this interesting about this plant and many of the peas is that it has a woody root, and it's the woody root that helps it get through droughts, but it also makes it extremely hard to dig up and transplant, or even to dig up and rescue. So that's a valuable thing to know if you are trying to rescue it. And you'll find the same thing if you are trying to rescue Neptunias, which are the yellow puffs, or mimosas, which are the pink puffs, and or like Illinois bundleflower. And scarlet pea spreads by long branches, and it can get really wide, maybe 4 feet wide, but it's very easy to control. So if you want to, in order to read more about its other attributes and other needs, you can just go on the website and go through the PowerPoint that's showing now. One thing that I couldn't find much about was whether or not it dies back in the winter. However, I'm guessing that it does, because many of the other pea perennials do die back in the winter, and back to the same plants. Baptisia dies back, Neptunias, the yellow puffs, and the pink puffs die back, as does Illinois bundleflower. So it probably will kind of disappear in the winter. And if you do go to the website to look to the Native Plant Society website, Houston chapter, to look up other members of the other plant of the month presentations, I want to tell you right now that after about the first 5 of them, the photographs are mixed up. They're not, they're like one off. So don't get thrown off by that. We'll get that fixed, but you'll come across it and you'll go, oh, that doesn't make sense. Well, it doesn't, but we'll fix it. And I do hope that you'll go to look, because there's a lot of information. And that's it.
Okay, thank you very much, Katie. That's a beautiful.
Wait, yes, and I'm sorry, Sally Hilliard just asked about getting it, and I'm glad she mentioned it, because that was on my notes and I forgot to mention it. You can get this at the Natives Nursery, the Audubon Natives Nursery.
I won't be able to share my slides, and you won't see me in the corner because I'm using my iPad, and I don't know how to do the feature where you put me on and my slides. So you're going to see the slides. Okay. My name is Shen, and I work part-time for the Katy Prairie Conservancy as seed collection man. Oops, sorry. Just 1 second, sorry, something. Okay. I work part-time for the Katy Prairie Conservancy as seed collection manager and great grow out coordinator. I am also a volunteer with the Native Plant Society of Texas Houston chapter, with the Native Prairies Association of Texas Houston chapter, and the Texas Master Naturalist Gulf Coast chapter. I don't have a degree in ecology or plants or anything like that. I just learn what I know by doing, by volunteering. So today I will be talking about collecting, cleaning, and storing prairie plant seeds, or seeds of herbaceous plants collected from the wild. You can apply these principles to plant any of the herbaceous plants in your yard also. However, I don't work with nuts or tree seeds, and berry seeds also is a totally different topic. For example, I think to clean berries, you need to wash the pulp off and then dry the seeds and store it. As I said, this is not an area I am familiar with. So I'm just going to be talking about collecting herbaceous plant seeds, cleaning them, and storing them. Now, under normal times, non-pandemic times, I would say the easiest way to learn seed collecting about seeds is to come and collect with us. The Katy Prairie Conservancy has seed collecting trips scheduled throughout the year, mostly in fall, and it's open to everybody normally. However, because of the COVID-19, we're limiting it to 10 people per trip at this time. And also we're only sending the emails out to people who are already on the email list. And the reason is, if you know how, we're sending it out to experienced seed collectors, so there doesn't need to be much instructions, and it'll be easier to social distance. But after the pandemic is over, we're going to be opening the seed collection area. I don't have, when I'm presenting, I can't see the chat box. So Linda, if you want to break in, if there's a question, like after each section, I'll say, are there any questions? And if you can give me some questions from the chat box, I'll appreciate it. Okay. Most of the people know that about the coastal prairie, and I'm sure most of you know that before the European settlers arrived, most of the local habitat was coastal prairie, much like the tallgrass prairies of the Midwest, and where the grasses are as tall as a man. And you probably know that the prairie is among the world's most endangered ecosystems. I'm showing two maps where the green shows the range of the coastal prairie ecosystem historically. And okay, and today, much less than 1% of what's shown here exist, and in various broken remnants. This might be a picture of the coastal prairie pre-European settlement times. This is a picture taken at a fantastic remnant at UH Coastal Center in Lamarck, or the coastal prairie in the morning might have looked like this. So why are we collecting prairie plant seeds? One of the reasons is because of because the coastal prairie is disappearing, the plants that depend on it are disappearing. So various organizations such as Katy Prairie Conservancy, the Native Prairies Association of Texas, and Texas Parks and Wildlife have been trying to restore the coastal prairie. And in order to restore it, there must be a source of prairie plants, especially local native prairie plants. And the problem is that neither prairie plants nor local prairie seeds are commercially available. And that's why we're doing the collection from the wild. So one of the sources of native prairies, commercial sources of native seeds, is Native American seeds, where they sell only Texas native seeds. However, Texas is a large state, and if the source of their seeds is from, say, Central Texas, it is not that useful for restoration purposes, where they would like to have local seeds within 50 or 100 miles radius. But why does it matter if you have big blue stem from Central Texas or big blue stem from coastal prairie? Why should it matter? Well, little blue stem grows from Canada all the way down south to just north of around Corpus Christi area. However, if I were to collect seeds from a Canadian little blue stem, it might not be able to tolerate our summer heat. For example, St. Bernard and Chihuahuas are both the same species. They're dogs, but the Chihuahua is probably not able to survive in the Alps in the snow in wintertime. So even though they're same species, they have genetic differences to accommodate for the location where they are grown. Okay, so what I'm going to talk tonight is the topics essentially are how to collect seeds, how to clean seeds, and how to store them. Okay, these are some of the basic equipments that you can use for seed collecting. Usually you have a bucket or a reusable grocery bag that you can hang on your arms, so where you can put some paper bag and where you can put the seed that you collected, where you can put some tools, etc. On this slide, you see Cullen Ondrasik. He made this seed collecting bucket that he's hanging across on his self, so he can have both seeds available to collect, both hands available to collect the seeds. And he got the idea from Tom Solomon. And on the lower right-hand corner, you see somebody wearing a bunch of cut up milk bottles that was tied to his waist with a bungee cord. And so now he can use both hands and collect, and then he can collect five different seeds. So that's one of the equipment. When you collect seeds, you need to put them in paper bags or paper envelopes, so you can bring a variety of sizes. The lunch bag is very good. And also you bring some envelopes from the junk mail. You can reuse that to collect small amounts of seeds or a grocery bag. Bring some gloves in case some seeds are prickly, like rattlesnake master seeds. You need a pair of scissors or clippers sometimes, because some seeds, especially wildflower seeds, that have a strong stem, and if you pull the seed head off, the stem is so strong that you'll end up pulling the plants out. So the best way is to snip it off with a pair of scissors. One example is black-eyed Susan. And also, for example, Liatris is a long stem of seeds, and you can just cut the whole seed head off. You do want to bring a marker or a pen to write the name of the seed, the date you collected, and the location. Don't do as I say and not as I do, because I have more than one say, oh, I recognize the seed, and then later say, what in the world is that? Okay, the comb and the brush is a handy tool to collect seeds. For example, this is Susan Conity, said that collecting Gulf muley seeds, if you use a comb and just sort of brush it, you use a brush, she uses a dog brush. This is a old hairbrush that I have, and you just brush it, and then you take it off. It's a quick and easy way to collect Gulf muley seeds. And here's a video that shows how you use a comb to collect little blue stem seeds. So you sort of hold the comb and pull it up the stem, and then the little blue stem seeds will come up on the comb. So that was one of the ones I hadn't known before, and when I researched this talk, it came up. So from now on, I'll be taking a comb also with me. Okay, so first, let me go into some seed collecting basics. For restoration purposes, it's best to collect natural growing wild populations, not from roadside plantings, not from gardens, and not from cultivated populations, and sometimes not even from restored prairies. The reason is, for example, from your garden, if you say, okay, I got my black-eyed Susan seeds from a prairie remnant, really nice prairie remnant, for example, Nash Prairie, then I put it in my garden. And then whenever it goes to seeds, I collect the seeds and I give it to Katy Prairie for restoration. Well, that's generally, it may be okay, it may not be. Maybe my next door neighbor has another species of black-eyed Susan from, New York. Our black-eyed Susan is Rudbeckia hirta, and there are the ones in the nursery tray is Rudbeckia fulgida, and perhaps the bees will cross-pollinate, and sometimes even different species, they'll cross-pollinate and they might make a cross. So you won't be giving a local pure genetic samples for if you get it from, you may not do that if you get it from your garden. So, okay. Now, some of the ethics and some of the ethics and pointers about collecting from the wild. First of all, you need to get permission from the landowner. Often there's a for sale sign with a phone number. So call that and say, hey, I would like to collect seeds from your property, if I may. Usually tell them that these plants are very common, but there's not as much of a commercial source. And also that I usually say I have more volunteer labor than we have money to buy these plants, even if they were commercially available. That way, they don't think that you're going to have a rare plant and you're going to keep them from developing the land. You're not going to keep them from developing the land, even if you do find a rare plant. But a lot of times when people hear that I want to collect and you have something that is rare, they would just go out and bulldoze it. So tell them, most of the time, the ones we collect, we find in prairie remnants, they the plants are common. They're in other prairie remnants, so it's not a lie. And tell them that, like I said, we have more volunteer labor than we have money, and that's why we're collecting. And it's some landowners will let you collect and others will not. So the other way you can find a landowner's name is to look up the property on the Harris County Assessment District website. The next thing you want to do is, like I've said before, you want to collect in paper bags. The reason that you want to collect in paper bags, not plastic bags, is because if there's any kind of moisture, the seeds will mold in plastic. Okay. Then you want to collect less than 10% of the seed in one season. That way you'll leave some for the wildlife and you'll leave some to propagate. I saw another website that says if you're collecting from perennials, which comes back from the roots, you can take up to 30%. And the other thing is how much percentage also depends on what the landowner said, because if you're collecting from, say, Nash Prairie, it depends on what TNC will allow you to collect. You want to collect common plants, not rare plants. If you see 100 of them, you can collect some seeds. If you only see 10 of them, even though it's common in another location, if you only see 10 in the location you're collecting, please don't collect and leave it to reseed itself, propagate itself, etc. There's another thing. Plants on the rare plant list, there are articles that says you should not collect seeds from plants on the rare plant list. One of the questions you might ask is why? I mean, if it's rare, if I collect the seeds and I propagate it and I put it somewhere else, maybe it won't be rare anymore. But there is another thought that if they're rare plants that you don't want to disturb the genetics of it, and if you propagate it, you might and put it somewhere else, and it might cross-pollinate, and you might, I don't know, change some of the genetics of it. So it's sort of controversial, or let me put it this way, not controversial. There's discussion on whether to collect seeds of rare plants or not. And another thing is, it depends on the landowner also. Okay, this one is collect like a drunken bee. So what I was told is don't collect it all along the side of the road. If you collected only plants along the side of the road, then the conditions are similar. Perhaps it's a little bit drier, and it might be mowed more, so it kept shorter, etc. So collect throughout the field. Like a drunken bee could go to one area and collect, and go to another area and collect. And so if you're collecting throughout the field, you might collect some from a wetter spot and some plants that's growing in a drier spot. So you get a variety in genetics. And collect from many individual plants. Don't get all your seeds from one particular plant. So that's, again, you want a diversity in genetics. Do record the data when you're on your collecting seed bag, the date, the plant name, and the location at a minimum. Sometimes you write down the name of the collector, you or your group, etc. The location, if you have a GPS, put it in. If not, you can always get a GPS also from Google Maps, or approximate GPS from Google Maps. And try not to collect all the seeds that's on one plant. So if you have a plant that's got several flower stalks, maybe leave a few seeds, so that those seeds can also drop and propagate. So that plant seed has seeds that will drop and propagate. And the other thing is collect ripe seeds and viable seeds. So let me tell you, the next section will be on how do you tell okay, actually, before I go to tell how do you tell the seeds are ripe, let me go here. So seed collecting, some of the basic, the first thing is plant ID. You have to know what the plant looks like that you're collecting, or what is the plant that you are collecting. You can have plant ID by going to iNaturalist, taking a picture, posting it up, and having some of the experts tell you what it is. You can look at guidebooks, or the easiest way is to volunteer and go with a group. And when you do that, usually for our seed collecting, we'll say, hey, this person collect little blue stem, and that person collect big blue stem. So you'll be collecting perhaps 1 or 2 seeds for an hour or 2. That's a great way to learn a plant. After you do that, you will learn to recognize that plant. The next thing about collecting basic is you need to collect ripe or mature seed. How do you know whether the seeds are ripe or mature? Well, don't collect any seeds when it's in bloom. It's definitely not, the seeds haven't formed yet, so it won't the incipient seeds won't germinate. For most seeds, when the seed is not green, when the seed head and stem below the seed head is tan or dark brown, or just a dark color, when it's looking sort of shaggy. So for example, on the picture here, the bottom is Texas coneflower, and the top is the seed head. And Tom Solomon, who has propagated tens of thousands of plants, said from his experience 2 things about Texas coneflower. 1, the seed is mature and viable mature when at least 1 inch of the stem under the seed head is brown. If the stem under the seed head is too green, don't collect it. And also, this is a little bit from storage, but he says that the if you collected Texas coneflower, you would need to propagate or germinate it within the year, because it goes bad pretty quickly. There's also exceptions to a rule. One of them is rosinweed. I don't have a picture of it right now, but it's one plant that Tom says you can collect as soon as the yellow ray flowers or yellow petals fall off. And even though the seed head is green, from experience, he found out that these, if you collect it at that point, the seeds will germinate. For grasses and a lot of other plants, the seed is ripe or mature when it'll come up in the hand. For example, if you have a seed stalk and you run your hand up the seed stalk, and whatever seed that comes off your hand, in your hand, they're ripe. Okay, and this is particularly true for grasses. You just hold the seed stalk gently and run your hand up, and whatever comes up off in your hand is ripe. There are always exceptions. For this one seed called long spike tridents, you have to run your hand down it. For pods, if they pop open on touching, or they pop open readily, then they're probably ripe. When you're collecting seed, beware of empty shaft. Seeds and also seeds that have already fallen out. And I will talk more on the next slide. Oh, okay. I'll talk about the empty seeds later. Recognizing individual seeds. This picture is the individual seed that comes off of the Texas coneflower. And this is cluster bushmint. As you can see in the picture, the individual seed are tiny, those tiny specks to the right. The seed head has little tubulars, and then what you do is you turn the you pick it off, and you turn this thing upside down, and you tap it on your hands, and if you see the black specks coming out on your hands, then that seed head has seeds. If you don't see any black specks coming out, then probably the seeds have fallen out already, and so you can just probably toss that back in the field or whatever, or you can just clip it and clean it later and harvest it. Try to harvest later. Okay. This is the black-eyed Susan. As you see in the slide on the right, if you break the seed head in half and you see the dark sort of streaks that's circled in red that's on the seed head, those are the individual seed. And when they fall off, those are the individual seed that's circled on the side. And here are some more. On the left is knotroot bristlegrass. The specks are the individual seed, and the long bristle part is the seed head. On the bottom seed head, there are no seeds. Okay, and on the top seed head, there are a lot of seeds attached. The middle one is Indian blanket, and it's a ball of the ball is the seed head, and each individual seeds looks like that. And on the right is little blue stem with the individual seeds. So the other thing about seeds is that's this prairie plantain illustrates very well is seeds are viable if they're filled which means that they have, if you cut it open crosswise, you'll see sort of white meat inside. They have the germ and the food and things like that. The seeds on the right, they're really looks like they're flimsy and things like that. They probably are not filled. They probably are not viable. And then the seeds on the left, which is more, have more bulk, are filled seeds. So often wild collected seeds are not viable. They're sterile. And why are not all the seeds filled? One of the reasons is during drought or unfavorable environmental conditions, they might cause the seed to form, but it won't develop correctly. Also, there might be lack of compatible pollens or pollinators. Other not viable ways the seeds are not viable, if pests can eat the seeds. And okay. The other thing about wild collected seeds, this is just an aside because we're not talking about germination, but just so you know, often wild collected seeds have low germination rates, and that's because of survival. Most of the nursery seeds that you buy have probably 90%, 95% germination rate, because if you buy some seeds you don't want to, and only 25% germinate, I think you'll probably be mad at the seed seller. Well, the wild collected seeds, if they had 95 or 90% germination rate, then the next year, all the plants, 90% of the plants of the seeds will form tiny plants and grow. And then the next year is a drought year, and all of these plants die. There's not going to be much seeds in the seed bank for propagation of the species. So some of them have low seed germination rates in order to have survival. If they can withstand the drought year, then the seeds will germinate the next year or the following year. So some of these wild seeds have what they call dormancy period. So if they form a seed, they might not germinate the first year. They might need 2 or 3 year weather condition cycles in order to germinate. So to summarize, some of the seed, you need to collect viable seeds, and viable seeds are the ones that are ripe and they are filled. Okay. Let me see. Oh yeah. The last slide on seed collecting basics is when you collect the seeds, and I talked previously about some of the techniques like running your hand up the stem or snipping the seed head off with a pair of scissors, or using the comb for muley or the brush for muley seeds, etc. When you collect those seeds, you want to put them in paper bags and you want to label them. And then you get to take them home. Okay, before I go on to the next step, are there any questions?
Hold on. We have comments.
Okay.
More
please.
than questions. Well, someone said, why not collect in plastic baggies? But you answered that, I think, right after she posted that. So Wally says seeds that are moist. Oh, Wally's answering about moist seeds and molding in bags. And then Katie says, before collecting any rare plant, talk to an expert like Anita Tiller or Texas Parks and Wildlife. Yeah. But,
yeah. Okay. Let me go on. So what happens after your collection trip? First of all, you check to see that the data that you're needed are recorded. And then the most important thing is, as soon as you get home, you spread the seeds out to dry for 3 or 4 days. You put it on a tray, a cookie sheet, etc. And sort of spread it out in a thin layer to dry. I would suggest you might want to, if you have a garage that doesn't have rats, you might want to start in the garage, because a lot of times the seeds have insects in them. And if you put it in the garage, hopefully the insects will flitter off before you take it into the house. You might need to take it into the house because we have high humidity. And if you take it into the house, the AC and the heater will reduce the humidity. So you might want to finish the drying process in your house. So after the seeds are dried, they can be cleaned. Oops. After the seeds are dried, they can be cleaned, or they can be stored right away in non-permeable containers such as plastic bags, jars, etc. What I like to do is, before I put it in plastic bags, I like to put it in paper bags and then in plastic bags, because plastic bags, if you have fine seeds, they can be staticky and they'll just stick to the bag and it's hard to get it off. So I usually put it or wrap it in paper and then put it in plastic bags. Okay, seed cleaning. That's another art in itself also. Any questions about drying? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, there are different methods to clean different seeds. On the left hand, you see a picture of Gulf Muley that I had cut the paper bag and to dry. Actually, I should have put it in a thinner layer, but I was in a hurry that time and I just cut the paper bag. Once you take after you dry it, you take the top thing off. What you see on the bottom are the seeds that have fallen out. Those are nice seeds. I mean, there's chaff and other stuff too, but the seeds that's fallen down are fairly pure seeds. On the right hand is a tray of Black Eyed Susan drying, and after I removed the seed heads, these are what had fallen out while it was drying. One of the things that Glenn Mercourt recommends doing is for things with longer stems, cut a longer stem, tie the stems together, and put the whole bundle upside down, hang it upside down over a, say, a bucket. Then when they fall, they'll fall into the bucket. And sometimes you can sort of shake it and or tap it against the bucket and shake some seeds out. So seeds, when they dry, some of the ripe seeds will naturally fall down. For a Gulf Muley, it's hard to plant in a pot when they look like that. And what I've heard is Flo Hannah takes a pair of scissors and cut these, the Gulf Muley, and just start cutting them in little pieces. I mean, say pieces that are ½ inch, ¼ inch, something like that, and then sprinkle those pieces on the pot in order to sow the seeds. You probably could cut into some seeds, but there are enough seeds that it's not going to worth worrying about. Cleaning Black Eyed Susan seeds. I told you once, you know, when you put it on to dry, you take the seed head off. Here, this is drying. You see all those seeds around the penny. The tiny black things are the seeds, and then the bigger seed heads. Once I took the seed heads out, then I get the more seeds that's on the drying paper on the right hand side. And then what do you do with the seed heads? They still probably have quite a bit of seeds. You can put it in a container, and you put the lid on the container and you shake, 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 shake. Okay. Then when you take the lid off, you'll see that a lot of the seeds have shaken out like what's in the circled in red. So you'll take the seeds out. You'll take the seed heads out, empty the seeds, put the seed head back in, and shake, 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 shake again. So that's one way to clean black-eyed Susan. Then you can also do sieving. For example, on the left-hand side is the black-eyed Susan, just using a tea strainer. And using a tea strainer, these black-eyed Susan seeds are really small. Then I got a lot of the shaft out. So then there are strings of various sizes that you can buy, or you can make. Okay, the next technique is stomping on it. For example, Rattlesnake Master, this is Rattlesnake Master. The seed head is on the right. It's really prickly. That's where you need gloves in order to cut it, and shears to cut it. And what Susan Conity says, one of the best ways to get the rattlesnake seeds away from the seed pod is to put it in a trash bag and just stomp on it. You stomp on it and stomp on it, and then you shake it out, and you'll have clean seeds, and then you separate that from the stems and things like that. You have seeds and shaft, and you separate it from the stems. We don't separate seeds from shaft. We just want to see, a lot of times they clean the seeds for going into a no-till drill, and they just, if it has some shaft in it, that's fine too. As long as it goes through the drill, it'll just fall on the ground, and the shaft will decompose and the seeds will germinate, hopefully. Okay, that's it for generally seed cleaning. Does anybody have any questions? Generally,
Yes.
Yes.
Yes, Susie wants to know about how do you know when the seeds are dry?
I just put it and dry it for, like, if you put it in the house and you have your AC or heater on and you dry it for 3 or 4 days, it should be dry.
Yeah, we're mostly talking about time. So
What?
They would dry easily.
Room temperature,
then,
yeah.
Well, because, yeah.
I don't know if there's a dryness meter or not. Usually that's, I don't know.
Yeah. And then she also wants to know about sharing seeds from her home prairie to other homeowners.
Yes. If you want to share it from your prairie to other homeowners, that's perfectly legitimate. The main thing is, if you want to share your home seeds to a restoration, then you need to tell them, where the original seed came from and that you grew it in your home. And it depends on the person doing the restoration, whether they want the seeds or not. So just give them the information and see if they want the seeds. But definitely give it to your garden friends, schools, but tell the schools, and also the schools need to also, if they want to share it to restoration, they also need to, tell the source of it and that it's grown in a school garden.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else?
No, I think you're being pretty thorough.
Okay. The next part will be seed storage. Okay. Usually seed storage, dry and cold, is good. Usually you dry in the refrigerator. Actually, from the Wildflower Center, it says to do it in the refrigerator. And I put freezer because I know that for example, the Millennium Seed Project or storage in the North Sea, long-term storage, they do store it in the freezer. I think the reason they say for home to put it in the refrigerator, because if you want to store it in the freezer, you want to make sure it's dry and really dry. Okay, so if you just store, I mean, for home storage, put it in the best thing is put it in the fridge. The seeds, they can, like I said before, they can be put in plastic bags, glass jars, etc. You can put it at room temperature, but the viability decreases faster at room temperature. What I found is that they say is the sum of the temperature in Fahrenheit and the percent humidity should not exceed 100 in order for good storage. And like I said, lower humidity, lower temperature is best. Okay, anything about this? Okay, I'm essentially finished. So I'm just going to go through quickly some of the resources. At katieprairie.org/greatgrowout, GGO, there are videos. For example, one of them is seed collecting with Flo Hannah. That's a very good video. I took some of my materials from that. If you want to germinate your seeds, the one with Tom Solomon that says seeding, that is an excellent video also. So these are how-to videos. If you want photos for grass IDs, these websites, and this talk is being recorded, so you can go and look for the websites later and like take a screen, or you can take a screenshot right now. These websites have pictures of grass seeds. If you just want to look at pictures to try to ID it. Like I said, there are guidebooks, better guidebooks, but for a quick and dirty, these are good. Okay. After the pandemic, one of the ways, best ways to learn to collect seed is to join the Katy Prairie seed collecting trips. You see, Prairie's usually not open to the public, and it's pretty easy volunteering. You just walk and talk, run your hands along some seeds or cut some seed heads, and you learn from people that know what they're doing. A lot of it are other volunteers that you learn from. This is a great guide to the plants of Louisiana. It has many of our coastal prairie plants. You just, to get to it, you just Google guide to the plants of Louisiana. For example, this is the cluster bushman, has picture. It has various information like flowering time and things like that. This is a supplement also, or an additional resource. I didn't put the other than the Wildflower Center, wildflower.org. I think that's one of my best resources, but this is also another one. I guess I forgot to put that one on because I use it so much. And it has good cultural information. For example, the Cluster Bushman, it says, freshly harvested seeds germinate well. Harvest by removing the brown ripe heads and placing in paper bags. Bags should be stored 1 to 2 weeks in a cool, dry location to dry, then shake them vigorously. So it has various cultural information, which is good. This is handbook. This is an aside, how to grow out prairie plants. And this is also at the Katy Prairie Conservancy website, katieprairie.org/GGO. This, another aside, because we're not talking specifically about propagation, but this is a great propagation guide. It is self-published by Jan Midgley. I have her current address, and since this is going to be on for the public on YouTube, I didn't know whether she would like her address being posted everywhere. So send me an email and I will send you the address. If you send her a check for $25, she'll send you the book, and it is very good. Tom Solomon, who propagates tens of thousands of plants, uses it for propagation techniques. Okay, this is the Katy Prairie program where we send you some seeds, and you can grow it in your house and then give it back to us. Right now it's up and running. A few months ago there was a slight glitch, but anyway, right now it's up and running. You can go to the website and send me an email. Fill out the form, and then you'll get the seeds. Okay, so let's start collecting seeds. You can collect seeds in your own backyard. You can collect it in the wild, wherever you want. And that's it for me.
Okay. Lan, Doris wants to know about the website for the educational videos. Were those all, can you find them all in Katy Prairie?
Yes. It's, here we go. It's at katyprairie.org/GGO. It's on the Great Grow Out web page, and you just scroll down.
Okay. And then
and there's links to it.
And someone also wanted you to go back to the slide about the book. I'm not sure which book, but I guess you could go back to them or forward from here.
Probably about the native plant propagation book.
Yeah.
Or the grass ID book. The grass ID book is in the beginning.
Oh, okay.
Do you want the grass ID?
This says yes, so I think
native plant propagation book. That's the one you have to send me an email, and I will give you her address where you can send the check to. And let's see, the grass ID. Well, this is one of, I just use that for a picture. This is just one of them. There's lots of them. Oops. I don't know. Let's see. I think I just. Yeah. Common grasses, Texas grasses. That's one of them.
Okay. Frank W. Gold.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we can share the slides too on our website.
Yeah, we can do that.
In addition, eventually we'll have the video up on YouTube.
Oops.